Good evening, hope you're well. A massive political show in store tonight after, of course, Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper's speeches at the Labour Party conference earlier today. Here's a flavour of what the Prime Minister had to say.
This is a government of service. And that means, whether we agree or not, I will always treat you with the respect of candour, not the distraction of bluster. And the truth is that if we take tough, long-term decisions now, if we stick to the driving purpose behind everything we do, then that light at the end of this tunnel, that Britain that belongs to you, we get there much more quickly. And if you can't take that on faith, perhaps because you're concerned about the winter fuel allowance, then I get that. As I say, if this path were popular or easy, we'd have walked it already.
Well, I'm not sure about you, but I thought that was a great example of how to talk a lot without saying much. But let's get the thoughts of Olivia Utley, who's on the ground in Liverpool, who's been analysing all the action today. Olivia, you must be knackered. You've been there since the crack of dawn and indeed for many days. But listen, Sir Keir Starmer came into conference off the back of that plunging popularity poll, where actually he was worse off than Rishi Sunak in the ratings. Did his speech today do anything to make amends for that?
Well, this speech was sort of trailed to be a nugget of hope for the British public after what's been quite a lot of doom-mongering from the Prime Minister in recent months. The message that Keir Starmer was supposed to be giving tonight was, yes, there are difficult times ahead, but if we make those tough choices now, if we make those difficult decisions, then there is light at the end of the tunnel and there is a chance of a Britain that we can all be proud of. That was the message he was trying to get across. I think the problem for Keir Starmer was that there was very, very little detail in terms of actual policy announcements. You expect a Prime Minister's speech at a party conference to be sort of pretty thin on the ground with policy announcements. They save those for the budget, for maybe the King's speech. But this one had almost nothing. And I think there were quite a lot of people, both within the Labour Party and perhaps in the wider public too, who were hoping that that message of hope might be accompanied with perhaps some little nuggets of optimism for the near-term future, but we really didn't see very much of that at all. Very, very little policy detail. All we saw really was this promise that he would give more housing to veterans, and when quizzed on that, it turns out that veterans are going to be moved higher up the social housing list. It doesn't sound like an absolute cast-iron guarantee that all veterans will be housed, and there was no timeline on that. He also announced, but we were all expecting that too really, that Great British Energy will be based in Aberdeen. That's a little boost to the people of Aberdeen and the surrounding towns, but nothing sort of, no big announcement for the country. Also, of course, he has been caught up for the whole week in this freebie scandal. And this, it might sound like sort of nonsense fluff, one of those Westminster stories that people don't care too much about, but it really does matter. For a start, there's obviously the fact that there are now Conservatives and other parties suggesting that the Prime Minister has been hypocritical, that he's paints himself as a socialist and is then spending all of those other people's money on making himself look good. But I think what's more important is that people are now questioning the Prime Minister's political nous. The Prime Minister ran a very, very tight ship for all the years that he was in opposition. And during the election campaign, the Labour Party was incredibly disciplined, almost never going off message. But ever since they've got into power just 2.5 months ago, that discipline seems to have really slipped. And a lot of MPs I've spoken to have actually been questioning perhaps the wisdom of the people around the Prime Minister for not warning him about this. You remember, of course, that the Prime Minister was only elected as an MP in 2015. He is still a little bit wet behind the ears, and I think that is beginning to show. I think it would just finally be remiss of me not to mention, as it was sort of the highlight of the speech, the enormous gaffe from Keir Starmer, where he accidentally, when talking about wanting Hamas to release the hostages, he accidentally said the sausages, and that's been the main takeaway from that entire conference speech, which I don't think is exactly what the Prime Minister would have wanted.
No, what a shame for him. It's that's the part of the speech that's been making all the headlines. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for him, but a slip of the tongue came at the worst possible time. Olivia, thank you so much for your analysis. We'll catch up with with you tomorrow. I think Wes Streeting's making his speech tomorrow, the Health Secretary. But let's get the thoughts of my panel tonight. I am welcomed by columnist and broadcaster Esther Kraku, the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and political commentator Jonathan Liss. Jonathan, love your trousers.
Thank you.
Where are they from? All the important matters first.
I can't actually remember the brand right now, but I'll get back to you.
Teasing you, some viewers suggesting that they are akin to maybe sort of clown trousers or jester trousers, which
I don't need any assistance.
Some would say is fitting for the Labour Party conference today. What do you make of that? What did you make
I think they're very fetching. I think
they
match the colour of your eyes as well. You know, I love it when you wear clothes that match your eyes.
I'm so glad there's someone on this channel that actually really likes me. I have more of this, please. What did I think of this? I sort of agree. Obviously, Olivia's coming at it from a particular angle. I mean, it wasn't a game changer. I think that if you liked Keir Starmer before, you'll still like him now, although obviously we know there are fewer people that like him than maybe did at one point. And if you hated him before, you'll hate him now again. So, you know, I think that Labour's got itself into a trap with the... we're into fuel cuts, and this would, you know, now it's a question of kind of strength and kind of credibility. So they have to carry on with it, even though they don't need to.
So
it's always a mistake.
What was your favourite part of the speech? What most impressed you?
I think that when he was talking about a national renewal, I think that's the kind of thing that is going to hit home. And how
what does that mean?
He said that it wasn't about delivering a few Labour policies well. It was about the way that we can actually change the country. Because I think the one thing that we can all agree on was that people in this country do want change. People were voting against the Conservatives, but they're also voting against what they saw as a stagnation in the country.
But Esther, I can't recall any policies he talked about on stage today. I mentioned it over there. He talked a lot, but I really don't understand what he said, really.
Yeah, it was very, like Olivia said, very thin on the ground. I mean, look, I'll start with the positives first, because I think it's important to at least say something. It's clear that he's been working with a speech coach. He had some sort of impactful pauses, should I say. It was a lot more polished, and I've noticed that about him. So he's making more of an effort with his image, which is something. That's the positives. The negatives.
You can say that again with £2,000 specs.
Yeah, well, yes, but I think he's being, particularly on his comments about sort of the Southport riots and all of these things, I think he's being deliberately obtuse. I think he's choosing to ignore the elephant in the room. And I think the key takeaway that many people are going to take from what he said, particularly about the Southport riots, is the fact that, you know, it was, and Yvette Cooper's speech, it was the racists that are trying to divide this country, as people that are divisive and all of that. As if the country would be rejoicing if the person that murdered 3 little girls at a Taylor Swift dance class was white.
Yeah.
And I think most people are not going to pretend like that's not really the message that he's sending, or the fact that he didn't really address people's concerns around not just immigration, but integration.
Yeah.
Right? You can have a neighbour, but are you on the same page about the values that you're sharing, the space that you're sharing?
I'm going to do a whole segment at the 10 o'clock on their trebling down on the riots and the race row. Stephen Wolfe, what is a right-wing wrecker? Bit of a mouthful. What's a right-wing wrecker that Yvette Cooper talked about today?
Well,
any idea? Well, are you one?
Well, I obviously clearly am, because I'm somebody who believes that we should have a managed migration policy controlling those people who are coming across illegally on asylum. I believe that we should have low taxation, businesses should be supported, we should be looking after our own military. All of those sort of things are regarded as right-wing wrecker. But what I'm interested about Keir Starmer is that there he is trying to project himself on the world stage as somebody who is sensible. Martin Luther King had a speech, I had a dream. John F. Kennedy talks about we can go to the moon. And what does Keir Starmer say? Sausages.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
That's what's going to go. Miliband had bacon sandwiches. He's going to be reminded for his sausages.
I don't think
I think he was trying to go for the whole Democrat line of joy. But again, most people are
joyless. He was channeling his Gordon Brown.
It was also empty. How do you feel joy when you have a prime minister wrapped in the scandal of accepting over £100,000 worth of freebies, and yet he's taking away the winter fuel allowance for pensioner whose probably just £8 over.
I don't think this thing is a scandal. I think that what you've had in the last week is 4 different issues put into one pot. So you've got the issue of political donations, which we can have a big conversation about in this country. How do we fund politics?
Which shouldn't exist.
Because we don't have a publicly funded model of politics. Then you've got the issue of freebies, gifts, etc. Then you've got the story about Sue Gray and salaries and stuff like that.
But Jonathan, this is coming to the crux of what he's trying to project. He has attempted to project himself as being a sensible adult in the room, competent, bringing back responsible government. And yet, on the contrary to that, there we have him doing the opposite. Instead of handing back the money that he's taken away and saying that contributes to those people that we're taking cash away, he's actually overseeing a group of people now which is legitimising low-level graft.
Stephen, I think that we have to be serious about this. We can have a conversation about gifts, but it's the majority of people who took money actually in the last year were Conservatives, more Conservative MPs to buy the Labour, and more the Conservatives took more money.
Labour have been running on for years saying, look at the Tories, look how disgraceful they are.
No one ever complained.
Let me finish. The moment they get into power, they do the same thing.
Absolutely.
And do you know what? I don't think anyone can trust anything Keir Starmer says. Look at this clip.
But seriously, the flute gave me so many opportunities. My first ever trip abroad was to Malta with the Croydon Youth Philharmonic Orchestra.
So just before that, he was banging on about how he grew up in a working-class household, working-class background. What working-class child goes to the Mediterranean to play flute with his Philharmonic Orchestra?
What do you mean? Working-class what? So working-class people can't have access to music?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
in the early Blur days,
music lessons are very expensive.
To be fair, it was when growing up in my estate, first Moss Side and then Burnage, that would have been seen as something only for those on the upper middle.
But we know he went to a grammar school.
It might well
he
have
went
been
to a grammar school.
Yeah, it might well have been. But exactly that same thing. He's gone to a grammar school and now he's trying to take away the opportunities for people like me.
No, he's trying to give people the opportunity to have music classes, Stephen. He's trying to give people. Look, I think that a lot of the
that seems trivial, but it's not. He's banging on about being working class and knowing how
he is.
I don't know of any working class kid in my age, from millennials, who went abroad to play instruments.
He was in
a Philharmonic orchestra.
I don't know if this is what. I'm sure this is not what you're trying to get at, but it does sound a bit like what working class people should know their place and not have aspirations to things.
I have to agree with Jonathan, just because it doesn't make a difference to me. I don't really care about the perception of what working class kids do or whatever, or the fact that his father was a toolmaker, which I can't believe he doesn't see the irony there. I'm more interested in the substance. I'm more interested in what he wants to do for people, and I don't think there's much there. And I think this whole kind of polished facade, and he has polished his image a lot more. He's much more competent public speaker. But that's what makes me distrust him more, because he's confidently saying things and almost gaslighting the public. You can be a much more polished speaker, but to then say something all the riots or all the distaste around immigration is driven by hate.
The sense is desperation.
A problem.
He is desperate to try and appear to be back to be working class, when he spent most of his life escaping it and remaining away from it and not involving himself in it. The guy that sets up a set of chambers as a barrister, along with those people who got money off those people who were challenging.
Well, so he should have just worked a manual job. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't get a manual job.
So what's the problem then?
I recognise that I'm still working class. My family are still there, and I don't go around attributing all these benefits.
Economically, you're not working class anymore.
No,
you are not.
Still
okay, fine, but that's not an economic argument. That's not an economic argument.
It sounds like a trivial point, and you may laugh at me for it, but I just don't understand. I know many working class people. I come from a working class background. I don't understand how a working class child, unless they're very, very lucky, will go abroad.
But maybe he was lucky
to play the flute in a Philharmonic orchestra.
He was lucky. He's saying that, and he wants other people to have the same opportunities he did. That's completely legitimate.
Yeah. Okay.